Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
We are back for another episode of the Marshall Street Podcast.
Yes, with a very special guest, Marcus.
Thanks, guys.
No, thank you.
Good to be here.
Beautiful. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from?
Okay, so I am from a business called My Chiropractic, which is it's a wellness studio. We're going to go through a bit of a rebrand in the new year because we sort of diversified beyond chiropractic into a full wellness offering. And that's over in Eltham. I've been in the area since I graduated, which was in 2006. I grew up around the area.
Nice.
I used to work at the Eltham gym as a PT.
Right, staying local.
Yeah, because I was pretty quiet as a kid, a bit shy. So I got a PT quality when I was at uni, so I could start working as a PT to prepare the one-on-one conversational part of my job, and then talking to people about their health and asking some of those harder questions. And then, started work in Eltham, and I've been there ever since. I have always come from a lifestyle wellness perspective, though. There's lots of diversity in terms of what a chiropractor can offer. Personally, I always like to get to the cause of all health issues. So through that, there's been a natural investigation through time for me around all the different information out there related to health and wellness and the things that impact us as individuals. And I come from a philosophical position of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and I'm in the process of trying to create a model which will be called Super Well, which is around helping people maximally express their health as an individual.
Cool. Awesome. And then, so just to give people some context, we're in a business networking group together.
Yeah.
And I listened to one of your podcasts where you talked about sleep, not only the importance of sleep, but actually how much it can affect you in what you do in your day-to-day lives. And one of the big ones that blew me away was the stat of lack of sleep. If you don't get your proper sleep, how much that can affect your memory and retaining information the next day. So when it comes to test or VCE kids who are going through exams, they may study and know the content. If they don't get enough sleep the night before, that can actually affect them enough to either fail or pass them. Essentially, it affects your mind that much that you can do everything right. And teachers never told you this. Hey, guys, sleeping the night before an exam is as, if not more important than the fucking study you do 2 months leading up to it.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting, we can add links into the podcast here. There's an interesting YouTube video of a TED Talk, a guy called Matthew Walker. He's probably one of the leading experts in the world around this, and he shows some imagery where they did a study where they compared two groups of people where they got them to learn new information. They had one that got a good night's sleep and then one which they deprived, and they showed that there was a 40% reduction in the retention of information, right? 40%, yeah. And what they found, there's a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is sort of, I guess it's kind of like an inbox, that's the starting process of generating memories. And what they found when people were sleep deprived, there's actually almost no activity in that. So it's like you're trying to learn, if we use an email as an analogy, you're trying to learn information. It comes into the system, then you have to process it, and it gets filed off somewhere in your brain and so forth. When you don't sleep, it just bounces back, like it doesn't even get there in the first place. So we know that sleep's really important, and it's not only important for the retention of, but it's in preparation of trying to learn a task. So if I was coming here and having some kind of lesson to learn the guitar or something like that, if I don't sleep the night before, my ability to even start the process is no good. And then if I don't sleep the night of, you don't integrate that information. So our brain goes into processes after we do learn things. When we sleep, it's really important for the formulation of those memories. So when you get into different levels of sleep, your brain brings that information together. It actually speeds up, I think, up to about 20%. So it's like you're redoing the day in fast motion, and it sort of integrates that information
while you sleep.
While you sleep, right? Huh. So if you're not sleeping, then you lose that.
You don't give it that chance to go through that process.
Yeah, it's kind of just like looking at something and just being like, I did not recognize those
the
words.
information didn't even go in, which is, and I mean, especially, and one of the reasons why I was so keen to get you on was in the music and entertainment industry, sleep is something that many artists have to sacrifice either out of necessity that you play gigs late at night, and that gets your body out of its usual sleep rhythms, or there is that kind of thought process of, you know, fuck it, sleep when you're dead. Fuck it, like, let's go out. Dudes will be, especially guys who are trying to be DJs or starting out in the scene, they'll usually have to play like 3 clubs a night. So they might play somewhere from fucking 9 till 12, 12 to 3, then go to another one for recovery from fucking 4 till 7 in the morning. And, you know, they'll do that Friday and Saturday night. And then they form into, not everyone, but just from, you know, people that we have seen, they fall into, you know, what I'd call mental health issues, whether it's they're not performing at their best, or depression, anxiety, or just not functioning to what would be 100% of their output capacity. And a lot of it comes down to sleep, and then I guess all the other things that you just don't talk about as an artist, like food, the nutrition, what we put in our bodies is going to have a great effect on how it works, and, you know, what we can do the next day. So run us through some of that. And even before you get in that, what are your thoughts on the like that whole sleep when you're dead, and all right, well, you know, kind of praising the, yeah, man, I just work all night. That's that approach.
Yeah, so I personally was a bit of a play hard, party hard, you know, train hard, work hard. So when I was at uni, I got ducks to the course because I'd study late at night. My best hours were like 11 till 3 because I'd be training after, I'd go to uni all day, and then I'd go and do footy training or something else, you know, depending on the time of year. Then I'd eat, and then, you know, decompress for a little bit. Then I'd get into the study, and then it was just go all the time. And sometimes I reflect back and think, geez, I wish I had some of the knowledge I have now back then, because I probably would have pulled back a little bit. Definitely the attitude of I'll sleep when I die basically means you're going to get there faster. They know that all-cause mortality, which means all things that will kill people, increase if you don't sleep. The World Health Organization classified shift work as a carcinogen, right? Meaning, in other words, if you're a shift worker and you work late at night, you're increasing your chance of having cancer, which is just, you know,
mind-blowing.
And it's really interesting.
And can you just repeat that again? Because that's a huge statement. Just
the World Health Organization.
Yep.
So they classified, I can't remember when it was, that shift work is as a carcinogen. So if you think about nicotine, tobacco, things that cause lung cancer, they're putting lack of sleep or, you know, sleep debt or interfering with sleep cycles in the same kind of bracket as that.
Yep.
And it's really fascinating because more and more information is coming out around the detrimental effects of sleep. I have a cool little infographic on my phone, which we'll go through shortly, which we can put up as well, link to that in the notes, that it talks about all the different aspects in which sleep deprivation will impact on someone. Coming back to your point about the artists, I guess, and where I said at the start, looking at things holistically, I have to go to a networking thing next week, and they asked me for a job title. And I could have written chiropractor, but I know the guy, and the reason why he's invited me is not because of that. It's because of this more holistic thinking. I was trying to come up with a title, and I end up just calling myself a holist, because that's the way I kind of view everything. And you need to look at life. Like, health is always packaged up as one entity, and then you've got work, or you've got exercise, or you've got relationships or whatever, but nothing actually exists independent of anything else, and everything flows into each other. So you need to understand the impact of all those other choices on each other. And so if you're an artist and you have to go out and that's you're earning your crust at night time, you need to do that work up front until you have a little bit more say in what you're doing. You need to make sure you're supporting your life everywhere else, so that when it comes to that day, your body's robust, you know, and the impact that night's actually going to have on you is less. So it's still going to have an impact, but if you can minimise the impact, that would be the advice that I'd be trying to get across to people. And then that comes back to, you know, really understanding that health is an expression, and that you can either facilitate that expression or you can diminish it. That's what I would be advising anyone in that space is, supporting themselves with an appropriate lifestyle based upon the things that are important to them, right? Because everybody's different as well.
So how would you suggest, if someone is, say there's like a lot of people that are starting out and trying to find where they want to be in the music industry and things like that. They might be a DJ, they might produce music, they might mix live bands and stuff like that. So they've got all these different things that they have to kind of tick off. just to earn enough money to live. How do you approach that in terms of getting enough sleep or getting enough exercise or eating the right foods and all that sort of stuff? Does it start with kind of scaling back, or, you know, how do you approach that?
So I would have a series of questions that I would ask. So the first one is, what am I wanting to achieve? I want my body to be, you know, at peak performance given the things that I have to do. So what does that entail? Then you're adopting a philosophy that overarches all your decision making in each area. So then you go, all right, well, when it comes to food, what does it mean, peak performance, you know, and how does this impact on everything else? So if we look at food, what we don't often do is look at, you know, the choice that we're making here on this area over here. And really it's the interconnection between two parts in life that actually makes most of the difference, right? It's where this thing affects the other thing. So you could look at consumption of things that interfere with your brain function, like caffeine, alcohol, taking drugs, you know, even the time of day that you choose to do certain things. So like if you're going to have a coffee, you want to make sure that you've got up and you've moved first, you've eaten some food first, and you're not taking a coffee to kickstart your day. So I can imagine an artist goes out on the weekend, you know, they work, they're tired, their sleep cycle's interrupted, comes to Tuesday morning, they've got to get up and, you know, maybe Monday they have a rest day, but Tuesday they've got to get up and start doing some stuff, you know, working through some of their own work, whatever. They get out of bed, they're feeling a bit exhausted, so they just jack themselves up with a coffee, right?
Or
you
like
know,
energy
or
drinks.
500 mil of mother is
right.
the more
We see it
likely.
all, like,
and that
all the
stuff,
time.
right, is just like death.
Yeah.
You know, you're like basically going to erode your insides having that. So you'd be far better off getting up and moving, like going out and exercising. That'll stimulate your body more than, and even if it's just a swift walk around the block, doing, you know, like star jumps for 5 minutes or like push-ups, some squats. You don't even need to go to a gym or anything. You just need to get yourself moving. You need to get your blood pumping. Have some nutrition, get that into your body, and then your body will be primed to go. You're going to be more effective when you're in that state, because when you take a mother to kickstart you, what you're actually doing is it's like getting paddles on your adrenal glands. You know, like, you know, when people have a heart attack, they get the paddles on them. It's like putting them on your adrenal glands and then you know, shooting them up a bit. So then all of a sudden you're in the fight or flight response. You're in a stress response. Your brain doesn't work as effectively in that state.
Shuts
your memory
down
doesn't
other things,
work,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Cortisol
So like you
starts running through you.
Totally, right. And then the things that occur when you're in that state, if you think about someone, if they talk about recounting an event where they got attacked or something like that, they often can't remember things. It's because your brain, what it does when you're in that status, you have this little central control mechanism. It's a bit like this booth that we're in here that controls all the elements in your body. And when you're in stress, it actually shuts things down and turns things up. So, for instance, you'll get like right now, this is a bit of a unique room because you can't hear anything outside of here. But if we were in, say, my office, there's noises everywhere. But if we were having this conversation, you wouldn't notice any of that because your brain just filters it out because it's not important. When you're under stress, filters go away, you hear everything because it's a protective mechanism, you know. Light sensitivity, same thing. But then there's all these other functions like, you know, if you're in the fight or flight, you need to be able to fight or run away. So heart rate changes, blood pressure, sugars, fats, cholesterol all change. You know, all this stuff changes in your system. Anything that's not important gets shut down, like reproductive hormone production, digestive stuff, immunity, complex memory formation gets reduced. So being in a state of stress.
Yeah, so if you're doing that to yourself all the time, you're just
no
having
good.
energy drinks left, right, and centre.
You're just keeping yourself
Like
in a
your
state
body
of stress.
10 Red Bulls and vodkas when you're overseas.
That was ludicrous, and I paid
Sounds
for
like
it.
a good story.
Yeah, well, we were in when I was over in the States, we were in DC, and it's similar to that. We were struggling with jet lag and the time difference. So we went down and we were watching Washington play in Washington. First time the World Series had been there. So obviously we're not going to stay in the hotel room, not do anything. But it was like midday, and we're just super tired. Like, oh, we'll have a vodka Red Bull just to pick it up, have one, and then without even thinking about it, like. Looking back, it's one of those stupid things like, how did you fucking idiots not put this together? Without thinking, we just drank them all night, put back like fucking 10 or 12 of them or something. Just not out of the intention to drink Red Bull. We were just like, well, this is better than beer, and we weren't thinking. It was literally the thought process didn't go past that. Both of us, we got back to the hotel at like 2 a.m. Both me and Chris lied there, and it was like 10 to 16 hours of pain. Like literally pain. Worse than any fucking come down of any drugs, worse than fucking smashing like bottles of liquor, like pain. It was fucking brutal.
Yeah.
And then the next day we were both talking about it, about how bad it was, and then it kind of clicked, and we're like, fuck, dude, we just drank like 10 Red Bulls yesterday.
Yeah.
And we're like, how did we not fucking think? Or more importantly, the fucking genius who was serving these fucking Australians, at what point was he like, guys, you've been drinking Red Bull for 6 hours now? But yeah, I mean, and fuck, you feel it.
You do, mate. And the caffeine, I can't remember. I think caffeine has a half-life. I'll look it up while we're here. So a half-life, you know, when you have a drink and they say it takes so long to get out of your body. So like a half-life is basically how long it takes you to eliminate half of the substance,
from your body.
right?
Yep.
So caffeine half-life is, I don't know whether it's 8 or 12 hours. So if you have like...
Yeah, I thought it was 8.
Caffeine half-life, here we go.
And even just getting...
it says it's 5 to 6 hours here. So if you're having, like say 3 coffees a day, you're perpetually caffeinated, because it just never really gets out of your system.
Yep.
Which you think about how many people just keep smashing, coffees.
Fucking A, that's me.
6 Red Bulls, 10 Red. How many did you say? 10.
Well, we brought back 20, so we could keep the cup with it, and 20 of those cups made it back
And
to
they
our
were big
hotel room.
cups.
All right.
So we brought back, we had at least 20 and some cups didn't make it back with us. So
Man, yeah, that's pretty full on.
Yeah.
And what that's doing to your body is just like putting you into this ultimate state of stress.
it was bad.
We like to use a couple of things that I use often when I'm talking to people to try and help them understand this. We use this idea of health being an expression. So you can't, when people say, I want to get healthy, you can't actually get healthy because it's a potential energy that already exists within you. So, for instance, if we turn the lights off in this room, what would happen?
It'd go dark.
It'd go dark, right? So everyone always, not everyone, 98% of people say it goes dark. But really, if now that it is light, can I add darkness in?
You can cover the lights
Yeah,
up.
but you can't. Darkness
You
isn't a
can't-
real thing, right?
yeah,
you can
yeah.
lose light, right? So we
Yep.
like to use this as an analogy in that health is an expression, just like light is an expression from the globes, right? So you're not really adding sickness in. What you do is you lose the potential of your body to regulate. You lose the potential of your body to express itself the way that it's designed to and it wants to by adding in poor lifestyle choices. So when you get yourself in a state of fight or flight, what you're doing is you're taking yourself into a state of like catabolism, which is, you would have heard of anabolic steroids, no doubt. That's about growth and repair. That's what steroids do. They help you grow and repair faster. So that's how you can go to the gym, smash your muscles, tear them apart. Then they'll grow quicker and faster. You can go again and again, and you get bigger and bigger. So we want to be in a state of anabolism where our body's repairing, growing, expressing itself maximally. But when you're in a state of stress, you're in this catabolic state where your body's breaking down, churning through its stuff. And when people are under chronic stress, how they lose a lot of weight, you can see that
They age.
They're deteriorating in front of your eyes because they're breaking down. So that's what like having stuff like caffeine regularly will do to you. It increases that aging process.
Cool, interesting. And then, and just getting back to a point you mentioned before, which was really good. Actually, it was 2 points. One of it was having a coffee first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
So there was an ebook I was listening to where they addressed that, and basically he wanted to bring into your morning regime, which I do now, and it's fucking awesome. But it's basically like a big pint glass of water with some lemon, apple cider vinegar, and salt. And he recommended Himalayan salt. Apparently it comes from a different depth is how they can actually classify it as that, but there's some other stuff in it. But having that before your morning coffee, because it just gets your insides and your organs going. And
Lemon water specifically, yeah.
Yeah,
Lemon
and the
water,
apple cider vinegar apparently is super good.
Yeah.
But he used the analogy of having a coffee in the morning to get yourself going is the equivalent of pulling the fucking fire alarm as your alarm clock.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fucking mayhem.
Just
Your
charges
insides,
it, yeah.
And that, when I just heard that, I was like, fuck, that makes a lot of sense. But I guess through society norms or just accepted behaviors, it's normal for your herd or the people you hang out with to be like, oh, have a coffee. So I think, one of it is obviously starting and having these conversations and bringing awareness to some of the things that society accepts, as done behaviors. Doesn't mean they're fucking any good for us or doing anything fucking productive in our
No,
lives.
you got to not compare yourself to society, right? I mean, this is another conversation we have a lot. Like, what is that philosophy that you're living with? Your overarching philosophy, like we coming back to your question. If it's all about performance and being at peak performance, and being an artist is no different to being a footballer and one of my mates, he's a BMX rider, and he's won a couple of X Game gold medals on the mega ramp, and those guys, you think that they'd be like full on party animals and stuff, and then when we went over there to watch him perform in this thing called the Dew Tour, like, mate, they're all super professional, because that's their livelihood. And quite often what we see is that people, and the advent of social media has probably made this worse, that you see only one part of someone's life, and these guys who you think are rad and gnarly and do all this stuff, but behind the scenes they're like super focused, and they understand what makes them execute the best they possibly can. Yeah. So if you're an up and coming artist, you should be adopting these principles, because I listened to a podcast yesterday with Ed Norton about his new movie. I listened to 2 in a row actually, because he was on Joe Rogan and also Tim Ferriss.
I saw him on that Joe Rogan when I started listening to it.
Yeah, and I thought I'd love to see the contrast between the two interviews. So I listened to them back to back, which was pretty interesting. But listening to this guy, and you think, man, it is not a coincidence that you are as successful as you are, because of the level of thought that goes into your decision making. So, but before thought comes like some kind of philosophy on the way you want to live. So in answering the question, you go, all right, well, what's important to me? How do I perform? Let's look at all the things I'm doing in my life, and let's just fuck off all of society's normal structures and just forget about it. Like, for instance, I'll give you a really good example. When you go to a cafe, why do they have a breakfast menu versus a lunch menu? You can eat shit whenever you want. Exactly. It doesn't really matter, man. Like, it's a convenient thing probably from a chef perspective, so they're only pumping out the same menus. But we take this and then we bring it into our own life. So like, we have a breakfast aisle in the supermarket. Man, you can have anything at any time of the day. So sometimes, if I have like steamed veggies in the middle of winter, with my dinner, I'll make a bit of extra stuff, and some mashed sweet potato or something. I'll have that for breakfast because it's highly nutritious and it gives me like a lot of what I need rather than ripping out, cornflakes, which have nothing in them, So you've got to break down, existing norms, because our society is not doing very well on a performance basis. Like, if you think chronic disease is going through the roof, the governments, they reckon by 2040, I think it was, or 2032, they did this commission, it was 2009 they did it. They were saying that if chronic disease keeps going at the rate it does, in New South Wales, their entire state budget would have to go to the treatment of chronic disease, which is obviously not feasible. Yeah. But that's how out of control it's getting. Yeah. And it's because we just accept certain things in our society. In Australia, where we are now, 7 out of 10 adults are overweight or obese. So if you're comparing yourself to everyone else, you're comparing yourself to the average is bad, right? So we want to create our own ideas, our own concepts. So that's why you have to start asking questions. Well, why am I doing this in the first place? Is this the right way to go about it? And what I would suggest, if I was an artist, because you don't have a 9 to 5 kind of existence, you have to break your life apart into the pieces. And then when I'm making hand gestures, which are good for the video, but not so good for the actual podcast. Just imagine my hands waving everywhere. And when you look at each individual piece, and then you adopt a certain philosophy on that is in line with your overall philosophy, and then once you have all those things in alignment, you can structure your days and your weeks up to make sure you're getting the maximum out of it. So, if you know that sleep deprivation is going to have a certain impact on you, the Monday and the Tuesday may be more around restoration and health and so forth, and then you might stack your week accordingly, so that if you have creative time, the worst time to try and be a creative would be on a Monday or a Tuesday, because your brain is just not in that space. Like, you're going to find it really hard. Like, writer's block, if I'm assuming is a real thing for artists in the music world. It'd be called something else. Yeah. Musician block.
It's
writer's block.
Thing. Yeah. It's a thing. We don't fully believe in it.
But it is true, right? So if you lose sleep, your ability to create reduces significantly, because we go through certain layers. When we do sleep, our brain waves go... So when we sleep, you go through certain layers of sleep, certain cycles, or you go through cycles, but there's different levels of sleep within that cycle. and our brain waves mirror that. So our wakefulness brain wave is a beta brain wave, and then we go through alpha, theta, delta, right? And so the alpha state is kind of like that early kind of dream state. Then we drop into theta, and that's when all your creative stuff starts to happen, you know, in your brain. And you're in this creative space. So you want to, your brain is, and we drop into this throughout the day normally as well. But if you're stressed and if your brain's fatigued, if you haven't had enough sleep, you won't access this space as readily and naturally, because your brain is just so out of whack and out of balance. So you need to get your good sleep to be able to come back into these zones. So you would then stack that stuff on a different day, and on Mondays and Tuesdays you might just do mundane activities
admin tasks and stuff.
I know I need to eat really well for the week, so I'm going to go and do my shopping, and I'm going to prepare some meals and stuff that's like. And when you're cooking in that, it actually, because it's so unilateral with the focus of, you know, whatever you're doing, you're cutting or you're doing this, it's kind of almost meditative, and it helps your brain, because meditation drops you into some of these states as well. So it helps you kind of get the healing that you need in your brain anyway from the lack of sleep. And then you can stack your week in different ways. Kind of just get rid of the whole 9 to which musicians already do, right? Because you already live a non-traditional week life, but you just have to get better at organising yourself to get the most out of what you want as well.
And I know there's a lot of people that rely on naps and stuff like that to counteract the lack of sleep that they've had the night before and things like that. But I understand that doing that, if you are sleeping irregularly and you're not getting into deep sleep zones and stuff like that. Like you need 40 minutes to get into a deep sleep zone after REM sleep, and then that's when your body starts repairing and things like that. So if you're only napping and you're napping a lot throughout the day, having 2 naps a day or something like that to counteract what you missed the night before, your body's not actually doing that repairing stuff that you said before as well.
The thing about sleep is you want to try and keep things as routine as possible. So if you have a night where you don't sleep, you want to go to bed at the same time on the other nights, so that you keep that routine. And then with that, just say it's like you want to try and get to bed somewhere between 9 and 10 p.m. That's ideal, right? Hours of sleep before 12 tend to have a higher impact. Sleep's regulated.
So your brain starts producing certain chemicals at that point, doesn't it?
That's where I was about to go, yeah. So our sleep cycle, we have a thing called a circadian rhythm, which governs our sleep-wake cycle and certain rhythms within our body, and that's sort of dictated by a hormone called melatonin. And during the day, and here's another thing that we could probably talk about: if you work all night, then you stay indoors all day, you're not really getting access to sunlight. Now, sunlight is really important with the production of melatonin. So you need to be outside, you need to get outside to get this hormone produced in your body. And that starts to kick in at around about 9 p.m. for most individuals and takes them through to sunrise the next day. So 9 p.m. is when we're traditionally, our brain is set up to start going off to sleep. So during the week, you would really want to try and keep your sleep routine pretty much the same, so that when you get to the weekend, it doesn't have as much of an impact on you. But if you're working till midnight every night and you're not really obeying the body's natural rhythms, it's going to have an even more significant impact. Like I was saying before, you need to make yourself robust so that it has less of an impact on you. And then there are certain chemicals, like stress interferes with melatonin production. So coming back to the coffee thing, if you kickstart your day with a coffee and you get outside in the sun, you're not going to have the same impact in terms of production of that melatonin. So what you want to do is you want to try and be clean so that melatonin comes back and you get straight back into your cycle. And when it comes back to naps, you can have naps. Naps are fine because they will help your body restore and recover, because sleep, so much of it is about your body repairing. In fact, that expert Matthew Walker, he has a quote that's something like, wakefulness creates low-level brain damage and sleep is the thing that repairs it. So just by being awake, you're creating harm to your body, and then you require sleep to restore that. So having naps during the day is fine as long as they don't interrupt your normal bed routine. So you having a siesta, in some parts of the world, people have that every day. but they also probably go to bed at the same time every night. It's just their body's in that rhythm, and you need to try and adopt that rhythm.
Yeah.
And so your body's pretty intelligent. So if you get into a rhythm where you're doing this on a Friday and Saturday and a Sunday, then you might have 2 or 3 days where you have this siesta, and then you have a day where you don't require it, and then you're back. But that becomes your new rhythm. It's like a weekly cycle. You know, your body gets into this cycle and it starts. But you still need, it doesn't, even though you can create a new rhythm and a new cycle, it doesn't offset the damage that would be done by not sleeping for whole nights. But you just have to be better at trying to get sleep when you can, and to try and get something rather than nothing.
Yeah. That's what the next thing I was going to ask. Can you catch up on sleep? Once it's lost, it's lost. Damage is done.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah. So then now, I guess with that and combining what you said, because I think what you said you did early in terms of uni and studying up until late, I think everyone, or not everyone, people who have some sort of ambition in life will go through a period of their life when they're doing that. Yeah. Whether that's studying at university. I know my old man, who was very academic, he would say the same thing. He was studying full time and then would go and tutor to pay for his fucking class, and then would have to go and study his own shit, which requires a lot of hours. Even if you're setting up a business in startup phase, the very idea of startup is you have to put in a great deal of work to get to a point of momentum where you can back off. Yeah. So there is always going to be periods, I guess, of your life when you might not have a full choice. I guess looking back on your experience, what you know now and what you've gone through, like you're obviously in pretty good fucking physical shape now. Having that holistic approach, that whole approach to life, do you think it is, what's your views, and is there still a time when you go, okay, by recognize it and going, this is a 2 or 3 year patch when I just know I need to fucking go hard, but there will be times when I can allow my body to restore and give it the care that it needs, but I know that comes later. Yep. Is that kind of a effective mindset, or is that, you're still doing some damage, but I guess it's just recognizing that better than not?
I guess it comes back to, we're going to go into like a whole like philosophy of life.
Perfect, I love it.
Yeah, like what do you want out of your life, And when I listened to this guy on a podcast, Matthew Walker, it was probably a Joe Rogan one, mate, I got to the end of that and I'm like, fuck, I'm going to die. Like, I'm fucked. I didn't sleep, But then I sort of, realised, I was being a little bit oversensitive. But it's not, what I had great experiences when I was doing that. I was going out, I was having fun. It was part of my evolution as a human being. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't take it back. Like I would refine some of my behaviour. Like instead of having 10 vodka Red Bulls, I probably would have had 1 or 2 and then had something else or whatever. Yeah. But also like just there's flow on effects. We talk about the flow on effects, like going out and doing all that. You spend money on like getting kits and also like consumption of stuff that's not necessary. Yep. But I think about how that would be if I hadn't have done that. And this comes back to that whole holistic view of life. Imagine if I had have done better with my choices around money when I was like between 20 and 25. Now when I'm starting up my startup business, instead of having to try and get it done in 6 months, I'm okay if it goes for 12 months because I'm in a better financial position, Yep. And I don't have to ream myself through being awake all the time because I have a better support structure underneath me to achieve what I want to achieve. Yep. But hard work comes, of course, at various times of your life, you need to be up more, or sometimes you can't. Like we've got a 3-year-old, we've got a child on the way. When they wake up, it's not like you can ignore them. Right? You have to address whatever you need to address. And so sleep deprivation and trying to balance sleep becomes an even bigger issue once you have kids. But you need to be prepared for that as well, right? So, my wife and I are having better routines and better conversations around that now in preparation for a few months down the track when that's all going to get thrown out the fucking window. Yep. My point coming back to the point is like choosing what you want your life to look like and going, all right, well, what's really necessary? Mm-hmm. What's necessary to have my life look like this? And then mapping that out and creating that balance again, because that's where a lot of people go wrong, in that they're doing things because they think that's what they need to do because other people are doing it. But if they really thought about it and they looked at the trade-off, the opportunity cost of that decision, they would maybe say, well, I don't want to do that. Yep. Like a good example, my wife and I, we're moving. We live in Albert Park. We're moving back out to Eltham next year. We bought a house. If we wanted to both work full time, balls to the wall, you know, we could afford a house in Albert Park, right? We could, and we'd do it comfortably. But our priorities, we want to be there raising our kids. It's only a short amount of time that they're young, and then they go off to school, and later on when they're at school, we can work full time. You know, we can and do whatever we want then if we choose to. So we're making decisions around like our financial capacity, our living, where we want to live, relates to our family, which relates to my time and effort that I have to put in as a business owner. You know, if I have to work more, I can't exercise, or our food will drop off, or our sleep will drop off, you know. So you have to try and find that even point of balance between it all, and understand what's most important at any one moment, and also the future moments.
Correct.
So we make a decision today, which we know is a good decision for the next 2 years. Then Alki goes to school, and then you want to be embedded in a community then. So maybe at that point in time you go, well, do we want to move back? What do we want to do? You know, and then in that, if we want to move back, we need to have, you know, a certain kind of idea around finances. So then you go, all right, well, what do I have to do now from a business perspective? How do I have to grow over the next 2 years in order to be able to have a choice, you know? And then the choice will be there. And then you may not choose to do that. You might choose to go somewhere else, but you still want to have the choice. Because you don't want to get stuck, right? I think this is what happens with guys, particularly, you know, male suicide rates are through the roof. We're running some mows in here at the moment. You know, men's health and male suicide is a big problem. And I think a lot of it comes back to guys getting stuck. You know, they have a mortgage, they have a job, you know, they have to work to meet these requirements in life. And then they've got nowhere to go, right? And then they don't talk about it because we're guys, we don't talk about things. And so it builds up and festers in their mind, and they have this unhappiness that plagues them. And then, you know, mental health issues are on the rise with depression and anxiety rates in society, because we get ourselves into these situations that aren't well thought out and not well planned out. And that same kind of idea, it comes back to the answer to your question around, you know, what should an artist do, is in terms of mapping that out, understanding where they're at on their timeline of what they want.
Definitely.
Know? If you're just an up and comer, or you're a professional, or, you know, whatever.
Definitely. And I think one of the big things, and I'm learning that myself over the last 2 or 3 years of kind of personal growth and development that I'm going through, but having that clarity around where you're going in life, where do you see and not just, I'm going to be a millionaire in 10 years, but I don't know what the fuck I'm doing on a day-to-day level to get there. Like, by knowing what you're actually about, what you like doing, where you see yourself in 2, 3, 5, and 10 years, once you really see that, and not only that, but you fucking believe it, then you can actually start acting towards that. And that's one of the big things that I think people don't plan, is just, where is that North Star? Where is that 10-year point getting? Where do you actually, like, if everything going to plan today, tomorrow, where do you want to be? And then, just mapping that out, reverse engineering that. But without that foresight, I guess, it's hard to bring that back to okay, why am I doing this? Well, I've gone out and got fucking shit-faced every Friday and Saturday night for the last 6 years. Why am I going to change that behaviour? If you don't believe in where you're going, or have that why as to why you're going to do it, you're not going to change it. And then the other point, which I've just completely forgotten.
I'll jump in, because that's good, right? So, like, this, you bring up some good points there. Like that whole philosophical piece, like, why am I doing? What do I want my life to be like? Is really important, because it dictates why you make any decision, because it's like a measuring stick. You know, you can apply it in a situation and say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Like, how does this match up against that? Yes or no? And, you know, as an artist, there's multi-layers to what you do. I just put myself in the shoes of an artist, and as you were talking and thinking, well, if I'm, who do you think the biggest artist in the world is right now?
Drake.
Yeah. If you're Drake, and you go, all right, why am I making my music? Like, why am I doing it in the first place? At some level, at some point in time, he did it because he just loved. He loved making it himself. Like, he loved the process of doing it. He may still do that, right? He loves that. But then beyond that becomes this, like, idea of a gift to the world. Like, I'm doing something because I know other people love it as well. I get enjoyment and positive feedback from internally from the fact that other people love my music, right? So then you become that can be reversed a little bit in that all of a sudden there's expectations from the people on you. So then Drake feels like pressure to then bring music out. You know, I need to do this, or I need to go on tour to satisfy my fans. But then going on tour completely fucks your whole existence up. And then you're making choices that are not based on your own philosophy. You're basing on what the expectations of someone else are, you know, or whatever. And you have to sit and say, well, what do I really want to do? And someone I really admire a lot for this is Wally DeBacker. Do you know Wally?
No.
He's the Goitier.
Okay.
He's my school captain.
Yeah, local lad from around here.
Yeah, same. You're obviously parading.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got ducks at the school. Really smart dude, Wally. He went to my primary school and high school, and he's one of his best mates. Has a younger brother who's my age, and so I've known him for quite a long time, and I just loved following his journey. And you think he was at the peak of his powers, man. Like how amazingly successful was that album, and what's he done since? He took himself out of it. He's gone and like doing some stuff. He's got his own recording studio. He's back to his art form. He's creative. He's back. He was back with his band, which I've just forgot the name.
Yeah, I know the somethings.
Yeah, and. He played a gig on the weekend actually in Melbourne somewhere that a couple of my mates went to, and you know it takes some serious contemplation to sit there and say instead of riding the wave, I'm going to go back and do what I want to do, because he could have immediately pumped out another album. Yeah, and because I think as a juxtaposition to that. That Kings of Leon album is Only by the Night, I think. Massive success, right? Like a great collection of songs. And then I think of their next album, and I just think of like that little shit emoji, you know, because like I'm sorry to pay out of the Kings of Leon, but like in comparison, right? Maybe they went too quick. What happened there, I'm not really sure, but I just didn't find that one and it wasn't as successful. Maybe there was only probably one song that ever made it to the radio or whatever, but like it wasn't as well known, well received, because they probably took a different
and even
track.
Even getting back to that, one of the things that can dictate that decision, especially in music, even more especially in hip hop, is people buying shit they don't need to fucking impress a lot of people they don't know. Like the idea of, all right, sweet, once you get some cash, let's buy a fucking car, let's buy some change, let's buy some fucking gold. That creates a jail that you have to live in, the framework to do something you might not want to do. So if you're in the position where you're like, well, guess what, I don't really want to tour because my fucking vocal cords are gone, I can barely fucking function because I'm on all these fucking drugs just to get through the next night, and you've been drinking for 3 months straight, but you've created jail for yourself where you can no longer say no to that tour because of the framework you put around yourself. So I guess, and you know, if you have that clear mentality of where you want to get to, that will just that thought process will allow you to, I guess, stop some of these social norms that people accept you, which, you know, I see a lot of people build their own jails that they then end up working a job they hate just to survive in.
And what do you want people to say about you? Like, this is something that I'd imagine if I was an artist, a question I'd be asking myself is, you know, what if people are going to talk about me, like in society, people I don't know, like my fans, what are they going to say about me? And then if people are going to talk about me, people that I know, that I work with, what are they going to say about me, and so forth, and how you have to conduct yourself in order to get that, to get the outcome of that question
that you
right?
want.
Yeah, so
interesting. That's an interesting thought process.
Because doing all that flash shit, you know, does that actually make anyone say the thing that you want them to say about you as a person, you know? That sometimes it is, you know, maybe it is. Like, think about Kanye. Like, their whole life is just this, like, amazing kind of funny existence, you know? It's like
media circus.
Yeah. And maybe that's exactly what they want.
Yeah.
Right?
But even now he's gone, like, into the church, and he's working a lot with, like, Christian music and stuff like that.
She said she's fucking had enough.
Yep. So that eventually something has to happen and it changes, and
which isn't always a bad thing. A lot, you know, in a world of positive reinforcement, separating, leaving that shitty job you don't want so that you can get out of the fucking mortgage that you got into too early. Like, these things are okay. It's like, fuck, it's okay going, hey, I got into a relationship and married someone too fucking young. We moved on. The best thing you can do is get out of that, because otherwise you're just holding each other in a fucking jail. And sometimes that conversation is hard for people to have or bring up. But it's a lot better to have that conversation, because guess what? You get out of it, in 2 or 3 years, you're going to be a different person as opposed to dragging each other along with you
and
for the
whether
next
you don't
10,
get
15.
out of it or not, the feelings are still real.
Yep, they're
like
still
you
going to
can
be
suppress them there, but they're still there, man. And that resentment will build, and and I think there's this really great. I don't even know where I read this once. Great phrase, and it's funny because you'll laugh at this given the where we network and the tagline of Givers Gain. You can't outgive the universe, right? So like if you're an artist, if you're thinking about someone who just wants to continue to create great stuff for the world, like it's going to come back to you.
100%.
The opportunity to continue to create is going to keep coming back to you.
Yep.
And that comes through like exposure and money and all that stuff. But if you become then a taker, a consumer, you're buying all the stuff, you're doing all this stuff, you're expending rather than giving. Then that, and I mean, you can say that you're giving because you're obviously transacting with someone else and they're getting the rewards of your money. You know what I mean? But at the same time,
you're not really giving. You're giving with an expectation.
Yeah, the focus changes and it becomes more around creating this idea of yourself versus and that branding. You're obviously all about brand positioning with some of the work you do. That branding, like coming back to those questions, what do you want people to say about you? Like that's really what you want your brand to be. You got to create the right. You got to take the right actions to create the right outcomes. But then when you're happy with that and you have that resonance within yourself that's in check with your own values and your own philosophies, you'll be happier. You know what I mean?
100%. And then there's one other thing that comes the next stage, I guess, for those who are still following along with this thought process and are fucking still with us.
Yeah,
which is awesome. I love this fucking rabbit hole to go down. But once you are aware of these things, once you do that the self-searching and you fucking really uncover all the deep fucking shit and why you're addicted to this and why you keep falling back into these behavior patterns and why do all your girlfriends end up like this, or why does every boyfriend you get, why are these patterns there? Once you really start searching through them and you come up with this, your why in life, once you're finding these points you want to get to and you're on this journey of positive growth, which is ongoing, you never get there. The finish line is death. Once you understand that, the excuse of ignorance is no longer there because you're now accountable for everything.
Yep.
And that you can no longer play I didn't know that. Because once you really understand it, you are aware that you are directly responsible for everything in your life, every aspect.
Yep.
Good or bad, everything. Not just taking responsible, direct ownership over everything in your life is your fucking fault. And people don't want to fucking have that torch shone on all their dark places. Nah. But once you do, it can be the most powerful realization you have because you are in control of everything. But a lot of people, either, it's super easy to blame on, I didn't do that. That's easy for you to say. You have studios. That's easy for you. I couldn't have done that. That's like, once you start taking ownership over all this stuff, ignorance is no longer something you can hide behind because you're now accountable to yourself, to others, you're aware of it.
Yeah, you're master of your own destiny.
Yep. And then that comes with then once you're aware of that, then you have the ability to respond differently in a similar situation. So in a situation where you might have slipped back into a toxic relationship or slipped back into an addiction or whatever it is, you now have the ability to respond differently, which is the responsibility in that. You have, once you're aware, you have responsibility, which means you can change the way you respond in situations. You can rewire your brain. You can understand how the brain actually works. You can start looking like, fuck, man, I wasn't happy, but I wasn't sleeping 2 days a week and I was fucking drinking bottles on the weekend and doing fucking drugs. And that was probably a direct correlation why I wasn't really happy or satisfied in those years.
Yeah. The responsibility comes back onto yourself.
Yeah, you got to take ownership of it, right? I mean, there can be at times a portion of blame to someone else, like if someone hits your car or their car because they're not paying attention or something. There can be elements of life where someone else does something and it happens to you, but generally most of the stuff comes from you, not to you. And
but even so say we take that situation of complete randomness where someone hits your car, how you respond to that, you'd be like, oh well, I didn't have fucking insurance and now it's put me out with the ground, blah blah. It's like, well, okay, you left yourself in a position to be exposed if something like this happened, and it did happen. So you created that situation for yourself.
Yeah, or you're on the road in your car.
In your car.
How you react to the situation is in your control.
Completely up to you.
Yeah, totally. And it's really interesting. There's man, my head went in so many places, and now I'm trying to like piece it all back. And like, and Gemma, who works with me, she's a mindset coach. She does a lot of this stuff with people, trying to help them position themselves so they understand where things are coming from in their life. And we talked before about trying to arrange certain things in your life to make sure that you're getting the success that you want. And there's a philosopher, her name's Ayn Rand. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of her. She's like, I think she was from Russia, maybe. She's written a number of books that are pretty successful. And there's this one part that she talks about, and essentially she alludes to the fact that where there's contradictions in your fundamental premises in your life, destruction will ensue. So like, for instance, if you are someone that works your ass off, right? So a contradiction might be between like money, work, family, and relationships, like your kids and your relationship with your wife. So you may work your ass off to make all this money to pay your mortgage, but you're never home. You never see your kids. Your kids grow up, they resent you, or they have like behavioural problems. Your relationship with your wife might break down because you never see her. You're not fostering that relationship. You have to continue to take action for love to continue to be there, right? So then things break down. So you have to, that whole idea of trying to organise your week and organise your life, organise your plan over a period of time, comes back to making sure that you understand those base premises so that when you're taking actions and you know the outcome you're getting is related to your own personal philosophy. So sometimes you may not like the outcome that you get. You might have to question why you don't like that, but if it's still in alignment with what what you believe in, then it becomes the not liking of the outcome is because you've got embedded in your mind frame somewhere an expectation of something else. But you need to clear those expectations out and understand. Imagine it being like a train with a number of carriages. You need all your carriages stacked up neatly behind the head carriage so that they all go in the same direction. So you want everything to flow through life. But if things don't flow, then if things are going off at different angles, then the whole thing kind of breaks down. At some point in time, something is not going to work. There's going to be some kind of destruction in your life.
The carriage is going to fall off the tracks.
Yeah, or going off the rails is a phrase that people use when people like, if you think about an artist and they're like they're smashing it. They've come from this creative space, and then they get to become this uber successful person. Then they become lonely. So because they're in hotels all the time, you hear this common story that they can't trust anyone. They don't know who around them in their support crew is actually genuinely wanting to be a friend with them or not.
Mac Miller, rest in peace. When he got back into the drugs hard, he was saying he's like, like his quote in one of the movies about, and he's like, you rock up to a hotel in a city that you don't know, where you don't know anyone. I'm sitting in a hotel room on my own for fucking 6 to 8 hours before sound check. I'm going to do fucking drugs.
Yeah, because he's lonely, man. He's not happy.
You want to feel something.
So your happiness reduces because you're not expressing these things that are important to you, all of them. You can't deny them. You can deny some of them for a period of time, but over the course of your life, it needs to smooth out. So if you deny something for a period of time, you need to then reinvigorate that and at the expense of something else. And so not every single minute of every day can you put equal value across all things, but you need to make sure you acknowledge them over the course of time at the appropriate level. Yep. And then they turn to drugs. They go off the rails because they seek happiness in something else. Yep. And it's not true happiness though, right? And so then that goes even more destructive beyond that. So
snowballs.
This is
and then they're not sleeping because they're fucking snorting coke all night.
Yeah. And so then they take sleeping pills, which are actually like, and they're tranquilizers. So you don't go through the depths of sleep you need to. You're actually just like tranquilized out. So you don't get the restorative healing part. So whilst you're not conscious, you're not actually getting the true sleep, right? Yeah. So your brain's actually getting more fucked up because then when you wake up, you're not restored, right?
Yeah, you're trying to function on empty.
You're groggy as all hell, and you feel like you've had a night's sleep, but you haven't had any sleep. And then
you're trying to put yourself in a position to make actual good decisions, which you can't. And then if you fall, and then the cycle continues.
And then you can't choose the right food, and you can't choose this because your brain's operating from a different space. And when you are stressed, your brain does it does make decisions from different regions. So it's harder to say no to the thing that you're not meant to, that you're not meant to have, and it's harder to make the good decision.
Definitely. Well, cortisol will halve your IQ in about 7 minutes. So like that's why people are like, oh, I was under stress, or even when you're about to order something at a fucking restaurant and then suddenly the waiter comes up and you change it at the last minute. Like, oh, it's cortisol. You made a fucking stupid decision under stress because it will halve your IQ in literally 7 minutes. But yeah, again, like this is why I was super keen to have you on, having this discussion, and the fact that in a creative field to talk about, hey guys, sleep is super important. I know we're all fucking entertainers and you got to be at the clubs and do what you need to do, but sleep is important if you want to be here in 10 years. These are conversations, I'm sure they were happening, but I wasn't aware of it. They weren't super public fucking 10 years ago. When I started DJing and touring, and we'd just go all night. You'd party all night, and you'd fucking wake up. It's kind of like, as an entertainer, every morning is a Sunday morning, and every night's a Saturday night. So every morning you're feeling like fucking shit, but you've got to go out and do it all again because the crowd is there. It's their Friday night. It's their Saturday night, and it can lead to a lot of fucking poor habits, behaviors, health issues. But one of the biggest things is mental health. Mental health in the creative industry, because there's also a lot of pressures we put on ourselves. Obviously, I always say there's something weird about artists where we look for satisfaction in something that we do from the outside world. Like if you want to be an artist full-time, you have to make money off your art. At some point, you have to recognize you have commercial-driven intents, and that comes from the satisfaction of the public. So it's a weird fucked up system we build ourselves where we create for ourselves, but we seek satisfaction from the public, from people we don't know. Just the framework of that can lead people in some negative headspaces because they're going, fuck, to me, this was so good. This piece of art, music, whatever, to me, this was good. This was me expressing it and I got it out there, but it fucking flopped. It didn't sell shit. So am I bad? Was that fucked up? And you can just go into this cycle. But like I said, having that why, knowing where we want to go, having that clarity in what we want to do in our lives and why we're doing it, will just mean you can deal with whether it's that rejection or getting dropped by a label or whatever the bad things that come in, you can deal with them in a much better and healthier way just because you're armed with these tools and this knowledge, from people like you, people from other industries, not just the music industry, but wellness sectors. I meditate these days every Saturday and it's fucking awesome. And even that, it just allows you to think clearer. But, you kind of have to go on this learning journey and want to seek out the answers, because for me, I wasn't happy with where the fuck I was. It was like, okay, cool. 25 years of doing this shit fucking wrong has lent me to not being happy with the person that I was. Let's change something. Let's go and let's find where we need to fix up. And, and it's not a fun fucking journey to be on. It's satisfying, but it brings out everything you were trying to hide. And I think that's the important part because, anything you resist will persist in life. Anything you're trying to push back or you're trying to block down, it will fucking just come up. And it will just keep coming until you actually address the source of it.
You can't deny these things, right? So we talked about this. So when you asked me about this podcast, you talked about, the artists and the industry and so forth. But the reality is, they're all human beings.
Correct.
And they're a species of an animal, right? We're all animals.
Correct.
And people forget that human beings are animals and they have certain animal requirements. And coming back to sleep, we're the only animal on the planet that actually interferes with with nature's way of sleep,
true.
right? No other animal interferes with it in any way, shape or form, right?
In consciousness.
Right? Yeah. So we create...
It's such a good point.
Yeah, we
Imagine if you saw a fucking wild animal,
watching an iPad at 9:30 at night.
and pounding a mother watching some bullshit sitcom. You'd be like, why isn't that animal sleeping?
Yeah.
You should be sleeping, dude.
Totally, right? Yeah. It's like when people don't feed their dogs chocolate because they're like, it'll kill my dog, right? You're like, well, what about you, mate? Yeah. Or you wouldn't give your dog Coke. You wouldn't give your dog a Red Bull, because people know that it's harmful. But when we turn it on ourselves, we don't necessarily take the same level of responsibility. And coming back to that, and the whole artist narrative that you said around wanting to, create this piece of art, I would say that's more of a primitive driver. So, people have creative brains or non-creative brains and, someone has this desire to express. We all have a desire to express our individuality. commercialization is a modern concept, right? So those two are not necessarily always in sync.
Yes.
And if you want to commercialize something, what you need to be able to do is understand what the average wants, what the masses want. And to be able to understand that, you need to be able to take criticism. You need to actually go to someone and say, what do you think of this? And then they'll say, I
It's
don't
not
think this
X
is
enough.
Yeah. And then you'll say, well, that means it's too commercial, or it's too, poppy, or it's too whatever. It's not artistic enough. But the thing is, if everyone was artistic enough to understand the value of that, then everyone would be an artist. Would be an artist, right?
Yep.
But the point is, you can only take it so far until people probably don't understand the value, right? The value.
Kanye.
Yeah.
It's a creativity clock. Like, I think of creativity as a circle, like a clock. You can just go round and round. At some point, though, it's like if you ever had a drawing or something you're working on and you had it perfect and you went that one bit too far and you're like, I fucked it. Like, you're going around this creativity clock. Eventually, you get to a point where you're back where you started from.
Yeah. There's this cool guy called Jason Fox. He's a thought leader, and this guy would sleep on 10 thesauruses, I reckon. Like, every time I read his emails, it takes me ages because I have to try and take each sentence at a time, right? Yeah.
Last week.
He has he sent this thing about oscillation through the other day, and I'll make it hand gesture again, but for the camera to work. But like, if you imagine my one hand going up, that's betterness, and then one hand going down, that's worseness. And then we have an axis that goes, so we have an axis that goes up and down, and one that goes left to right.
Yep.
And then if we had on the left to right, you'd have, say, like full artistic creativity. And then you have on the other hand, like what the public want. And so if betterness is judged by how much exposure you get, right? If we use that as the framework, if you spend too much time in the artistic realm, then maybe you run the risk of dropping down into worseness because the public don't correspond with that. They don't understand it at the same level or same depth that you do. So then you have to come back up and add a little bit more of what they want, you know? But then if you spend too much time there, you become too vanilla, right? Yeah. You don't stand out from the crowd. You're just like every other artist. So you don't, there's no reason to buy into what you have to offer. So then you have to bring back a bit more creativity. And then there's this oscillation that he draws on this thing. And he said the real key is to try and understand you need to speed up your recognition of where you are on that curve. The faster you realise you're starting to drop, the quicker you can amend what you're doing, and then the whole thing raises up. So you get above that middle line. So you spend most of your time in betterness, right? It's a really cool concept. You can apply it in health, you can apply it in business, you can apply it anywhere.
Yep.
But you have to understand what you're trying to achieve. So the artist who wants to be commercial artists, if they want them to be, if that's what they want their career to be, maybe you need to eat some shit first, right? And then work and have a creative piece that you work on for a long time. And that, I don't think I've ever seen Edward Norton do a bad movie, but this new movie he's got coming out, he's been working on for 20 years, right? And he read a book, he loved the book, he loved the character, and it's been moulding in the background, and he wanted to create a piece, an artistic piece that has, and if you listen to the podcast, it has, it's more around this, it's quite a long movie. It's a real kind of thinking type movie. It sort of positions it a bit like some of the other ones in the past, like LA Confidential and that, where it's not necessarily this like Hollywood happy ending type thing. It's more taking you into a narrative that's deep and makes you contemplate the characters and so forth. It took him a long time to mesh this all together, and it's a true artistic piece for him, right? Like, and when he was trying to sell it to he couldn't sell it because he's like, I think he used the analogy of it was like Rain Man mixed. No, it was Forrest Gump mixed with LA Confidential, and people were like, man, this sounds a bit weird. And then like even the music in there,
sounds
he
awesome
used,
to me. I love those movies.
He had Radiohead mixed with this jazz musician, and I don't know the guy from Radiohead to make the score soundtrack, and also the rest of the music, and like it's this full artistic thing. But if he had to try to enact that day one, maybe it wouldn't have had the same level of success.
Definitely.
And I love Back to Goithe. I love the album before that, before the most successful one. I've just forgotten the name. There was one called Making Mirrors is the recent, the successful one. Like Drawing Blood, I think it's called.
With eyes wide open and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I love that, you know, and didn't hit the same heights, but it's still got the same artistic level. You know, what he was able to do was just elevate it into he brought his creativity into a space where it became a little bit more publicly accessible, rather than existing in, you know, the true creative. And it's kind of like what Triple J used to be, versus what the Fox is, right? And like trying to find yourself halfway between those two if you want to have commercial success, so you still get to be your creative that you want, but have access to the masses, because that's where you get your money. That's how you get your livelihood. That's how you would do it. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here. No, it's not like I'm a musician. It's
pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said the way Triple J used to be as well, from someone who's not in an industry. That's awesome. Stewie, what are your thoughts on this? We've kind of hijacked the conversation over here.
It's fine. I'm just sitting back and listening.
Yeah.
It's all accurate. I don't really have much more to add. I think there's a couple of things that I thought we only touched on it, but it was how social media has changed the way people think. And I think like on that is like the reason why social media can degrade public thoughts, or, you know, the way that the society moves along and it changes that and sort of thing, because on social media, the algorithm causes you to see the same stuff on a repetitive basis. So if you don't have people that think differently in your inner circle, then you're not going to necessarily see the other point of view. So you're constantly just being fed the same information, and you're not challenging your thought.
Yeah, you're just in an echo chamber.
I also don't fully agree with that. I see the argument for it, and I understand. Like, it is true. It does give you this fucking echo chamber of fucking bullshit or whatever. You know, if that's what you choose to expose yourself to.
If you choose to expose, but people that don't choose to expose themselves to different things.
I think social media, but I don't think social media is to blame for that.
There's three layers to this conversation.
I think social media, one, it's just a communication tool. It's up to humans as to how we use this. If you choose, all it is communication tool.
Yeah.
At its bare form, what we as humans, how we choose to use it, what we load those funnels up with bullshit and fuck whatever it is, that's on us. But it doesn't change you. No one changed because of Instagram. It just exposed the fact that you were superficial.
I'm not talking on an indivial basis. On a societal basis.
On a masses?
Yeah. So this is the way that I think of it, right? So people don't want to unearth their dirty laundry, right? People don't want other people to know the worst side of them. So they only show one half of their existence, right? So straight away you've got this dichotomy of reality, with, you know, people looking at other people and going, this is what the world looks like. And even if you're aware of it, it still gets to you. You know, it's still like
it's just the exposure.
Because if I have an ambition to have this, if I have an ambition to have some kind of mansion wherever or whatever, and I'm seeing other people who are at my level doing that, then it kind of still gets to you, and you still sort of at some level think, I want to be there. What do I have to do to be there? Which is a form of resonant stress. Even if it is in line with your goals, you're still positioning yourself against that person, me versus them. Where am I? You know, which can create some stress. Sometimes that can be eustress and that it helps motivate you along, but most of the time it's probably pathological. It causes people to it causes harm. But even if people are really creating even if they're putting up all of what they are, right, and it is their full existence, and you're looking at it and you're comparing, you're still not coming back to your own points of what do I want? And that's what I think, that's the biggest harm that social media has done, is it shows people access to everything, and people don't actually go back with some introspection and go, well, what's real to me? What do I want my life to look like? I don't necessarily want to travel all around the world. I want to try and work on my business so that I'm setting myself up for 10 years' time. My kids can go to, you know, a private school or whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? So like the trade-off of decisions that you're making today gets distorted by these realities that are around you on social media. And then the echo chamber one, what I think with that is that what happens, let's use a controversial topic like Trump, right? So you've got all these pro-Trumpers, anti-Trumpers. What happens is they might follow certain pages, you know, just say you're a NRA, you know, member, so you love your guns and you're following Trump, and you get all the other people all the pages that you follow are likely to have or a lot of them a similar kind of thread. And then you've got all the other people who are, you know, not like that, and they've got all their thread. And so the anti-Trump people only get anti-Trump news fed to them, and then the pro-Trump get all the pro-Trump news fed to them. And that's good because they like hearing that stuff. And it may be in line with their values, it may be in line with what they want to do and execute in life. But what it does is it creates rage between the two parties, right? Because instead of being able to have a normal conversation, because you're in this echo chamber where everyone's like, it's like in Mario Kart and the Super Nintendo where you go over those little things that would super speed you, you know what I mean? Like It fires everyone right up, right? It accelerates the emotional behavior within the group. And then all of a sudden when they have to then coexist at some point in time, then it becomes more aggressive and more confrontational. And then that creates more stress and more harm because then it's not a natural state of being for humans. We don't like to be like that.
I think that comes back to, it's like, if you were to take over a country, the first thing you do is take over the media. Like everyone knows the media. That's why fucking Hitler was so successful because the news he was feeding the public was propaganda. But it works. I think in this stage, like in 1920, I would say, cool, that's maybe an excuse. It's in fucking 2020, blaming, whether it's Fox who saying that, the propaganda machine is here. Like, propaganda works. You can be false. You can be fed information. It's just going to further your fucking whatever your beliefs. I think if people are not waking up to their fucking existence and realizing that maybe everything they read online isn't fault and they shouldn't make all their judgments of this, if you don't have the fucking foresight to start thinking that way, like at some point, evolution catches up because you can't.
And it will change over time, but there's that whole law of diffusion of innovation. Like when a new idea comes along, people don't always accept it straight away. So whilst you're a forward-thinking guy and you're going to investigate, you don't trust necessarily everything you're being fed. A lot of people can't be fucked to actually go and read anything, right?
Yep.
They're too busy because they've overpopulated their life with other shit, or they're too tired, or they're too nuked chemically or whatever. So they just agree with everyone else. Wait, mate, you're not going to have a kid because you've had the snip. But if you, when you have a kid and there's this real easy point to see just different parenting strategies and different ideals and stuff. Not saying there's a right or wrong or any way about going about it, but you just see people either just follow what everyone else does or people actually ask questions and try and do different things. They read, they learn, and then you can see differences in operation in that field. But it's just, if you take that and you put it into health or you put it into even music or whatever, people either dive in because they want to know,
or they drift back into the matrix.
They just follow the average, and that's why 7 out of 10 people are overweight because they just follow what everyone else does and they don't think about it.
And even I think that's back to, it's not changing people; it exposes you. Having a kid in that situation doesn't change you; it just exposes the fact that you're probably fucking lazy and don't care to look into this sort of stuff. It's not changing you. It's just now it's going to expose it. Now there's no hiding behind your fucking bullshit values where you're like, yeah, I'm a family guy. Oh yeah, well, do you spend time with your fucking kids or not? Like there's now, you can't hide behind it.
And advertising is part of media, right? So I remember we did a podcast and we talked about kids and they had there was a study that they did where they showed that kids, they showed one group of kids, they were getting to play with other kids. And then they showed one group of kids some ads about this toy. And then they said, you can have this toy if you go and play with that kid over there. He's a bully. Or you can make a meaningful relationship with this kid over here. And then it was staggering, I can't remember the number, that chose that they would rather have the toy and cop the social disharmony because of this thing that was advertised to them as well. So even though they knew it was going to create harm, they still went down that route, right? They were told it was going to happen. But that was still the choice they made. So media does infect us, even though we're given all the information because we're human beings and we get duped. We have other things that drive us that we don't even necessarily always identify or understand.
Subconscious,
Yeah.
I
Nice.
think we got to start.
I could fucking talk about this for hours. This has been awesome. But we will wrap it up. Shuey, give us 1 or 2 takeaways out of this. Anything that you didn't know that you learned out of this?
I always have loved learning about sleep and how it's affects people, and I just think it's really important to talk about it. We're in a society of music where people like to appease and like to be seen as the cool person or someone that does the cool thing. I think it's always important to really just take a look at yourself and ask the question of what do I want and what is important to me. And a lot of the time that might be I want to drink heaps and do heaps of drugs and be a cool guy and party heaps and stuff like that. But the question still needs to be, is that really what I want? So I think that's a really important
There's no more important person to impress than yourself, right? Because otherwise if you're not impressing yourself, all those other bad conversations come in your head.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
What about you, mate? What did you take away?
Yeah, the importance of it, like, I mean, and it's still kind of sinking, as I said, like, I'm kind of just starting on this personal development and kind of journey that I see in improving who I am. But, you know, realizing that, you know, shift work is now put on the list with nicotine and carcinogens and things that will fucking kill you. Shift work, like, lack of sleep is that serious. And, you know, combining that with the industry that you're in, it really does make you, all right, let's take accountability for me. Like, I'm responsible for it. It's fucking on me. And it's super powerful because then, one, you are in charge of everything that you do, but it also strips away any fucking excuse that you were going to hide behind. So I think that's the biggest thing for me is that, and then as to just seeing where all these things interlock and entwine in your life. Like, you know, by having that clear outset and where I want to go personally with the business, professionally, where I want to take the studios, you know, that leads to decisions to, you know, am I going to go out all night this night? And I know that sleep is going to fucking make it so I'm not as effective in that meeting tomorrow morning. And once you have clarity on all these things, you can really just start pulling apart the threads and then putting back together
You can also
in
make
the way you
smarter
want.
decisions.
100%. You're going to make better. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think the main take home I love for people to get is that we're expressive animals, right? And that if you want to be the best at anything in life, you need to make sure you can express your vitality fully, right? So the thing that makes us express our vitality fully, there's so many things, but you can kind of package it up into kind of six areas. One's nutrition. You want to have, you know, good nutrition, good sleep, move a lot, like good physical health as well into movement. It's not just how well you're moving. You need to make sure, you know, you're lean and you're not carrying too much excess and so forth. And then you need to have like good mental routines, like good mindset, mental health, and checking in with yourself, and some of that stuff we spoke about a little bit with that. And then you need to have like a good understanding of your external environment around you, like how we rely on the environment. And this, I don't want to go down the whole climate change path, but, you know, like we need to make conscious decisions around stuff like that because it impacts us as well. And even just what you set up in your environment in terms of toxicity that can come into your system. Even just like imagine sitting in a room full of smokers, like that you're putting yourself in harm by just sitting there in one space. But and I've kind of forgotten one, but they're kind of like you need to address these things at all levels to execute and get that vitality expressing fully, and that's crucial in that. I'll give you some stuff to put in the notes so that people can access more of this information.
Yeah.
The podcast around sleep's a really important one. We didn't even get into things like dementia and Alzheimer's, but that's a significant component of lack of sleep too.
Yep.
Losing your marbles. So
we'll put it all in the comments. And then do you want to give a quick plug? Do you have anything coming up? People can donate to your Movember cause.
Yep.
Do you want anything you'd like to plug
well,
before we go?
We're going to have the Guys' Day here on Friday night. So
Yep.
let's plug that because that's next Friday, the 29th.
Yeah, when this is out, it'll probably be this coming Friday.
Okay, so all right, come along to that because that'll be fun. Or donate. Have you got a page?
I do, yeah. Yep. It's mobro.co/Stubser.
Stubser, all right.
Yep.
I don't even know what mine is, so donate to Stu's because it's still going to the same. It's going to the same place.
I think we'll hit it. I'm at 170 donated so far. My goal was 300, so still a bit to go. So I'm keen for that.
Yeah, so we should pull that through at the social event.
Yeah,
we can top that up.
That'll be good.
Confident.
And then for me, if people want to find me, my Instagram and Twitter handles is at DocYeo, DOCYEO. So you can shoot me messages or questions there. I don't know what my Facebook page one is, but I don't really use it as much anymore, so it doesn't really matter. And then at my clinic, My Chiropractic, which is in Alphen, Victoria. If you want to have a chat about anything, I don't just see people about their back. I do a lot of kind of ends up being coaching. So you can just book in there and you can book in online. If people want to book in online, you just go to www.mychiropractic.com.au.
Perfect.
Nice.
And as you can all tell, he's a wealth of knowledge on this subject. Marcus, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, boys. It's been good chat.
Yeah, that's it for us.
We'll see you next time.
Sweet.
See ya.
Cheers.